Well, my name's Nora. I am with the City Mentor in the Natural Resources Division. We are responsible for kind of maintaining and preserving the green spaces like you see behind you, all these hills. We do a lot of invasive management work here. So speaking of invasives, we have some here. I can pass them out to you guys. Here's some common invasives we might see in the area. So we have things, especially in this park, we have common vetch, crown vetch that we work really hard to get rid of. Maybe in your forested areas like at the lagoons, we're gonna have privet, multiflora rose, things like that. So we really want to try and eradicate those species. And what our job, we really work hard in these green areas that the city is able to acquire. But what this workshop is designed for is to maybe educate you guys and maybe why you shouldn't put these invasives into your yards, and really kind of expanding on the city's green spaces and putting them into your yards. So what I've seen, at least with research at all, like looking into papers, we're seeing a lot of decline in certain species, like our bird species are declining, and a lot of that is because of urbanization. So if we're able to take maybe some of the practices that we do, our division, into our own yards, we might be able to see some more connectivity between green spaces and yards. So that's kind of why we're here today. And I want you to draw up maybe an area in your yard you're looking to improve. It could be as small as just around your mailbox. I mean, it could be maybe by a gutter. Basically what I just want you guys to do is maybe think about an idea, and as we talk, think about maybe some plants that might work in that area. So now that we're starting to think about our area on, the area we may want to transform and add some native plants, things you want to be thinking about are, what is potentially your soil's condition? Do we have high acidity? Is it really wet? Is it really dry, sandy soils? Do we have maybe a high slope kind of working itself down? And these are going to dictate what kind of plants that you can plant in your area. So I can kind of explain mine too. So this is my drawing from like a little while ago.
Oh, now we see what we're supposed to do.
No. So this is purely like my own personal thing. This is my backyard, and this is what I want to do with it. So I also live with my sister, so I have to accommodate her. That's kind of what we have to do in life. We have to, make sacrifices for other people. So she wants a dining area maybe, and a fire pit and all that, which is all great. And I'm like, okay, well, where do my plants go, right? So I drew up her areas that she wanted to, make sure her yard had, those certain accommodations that, maybe people want. Her and I are very different. If it was just all stone and concrete, she'd be happy. Obviously, I would not. So then you start working on, okay, I have these essential areas, what can I work around them, and then maybe what area. So back there I have all full sun, just no shade whatsoever, except for early in the morning, maybe the tall trees kind of hit, the sun shading the house a bit. I knew it was really important to me is species diversity, so I'm gonna maybe think about having different species of plants, not just all the same species. You're also gonna want to provide different flower shapes. So maybe something that a hummingbird could use, you would maybe want to put into your yard to accommodate those certain species versus maybe certain species of bees that, that couldn't reach down into some of those longer flowers, like maybe cardinal flower or something like that. I also provided on the top of that sheet, we have a website link that I wrote out on there. That one is, I think, one of my favorites. It's pretty neat. You can put in your zip code and it tells you what species are native to your area, and then you can, look at the different, they list out the species, and then next to it it'll tell you what birds they attract. So I'm kind of a bird person. I like to see them at my feeders. That's really all that's allowing any kind of productivity in my yard right now, because it's just dirt. But I have orioles and hummingbirds, house finches, just all kinds of species. So my goal would be to maybe plant some species for more birds, more pollinators and all that, because the birds also, there's some insectivores out there, so they're going to try and, they might be attracted to your yard if there's some more insects there as well. And then while you're looking at that, it's important to keep an eye out for the season in which they bloom. So it's really important to allow for different bloom times throughout the year. So you want to make sure you have something that's popping up in the spring, the summer, the fall. That way you always have productivity in your yard. Even keeping grasses in your yard throughout the winter is a really good idea, because then you can provide some shelter for species of birds throughout the winter. So instead, I see a lot of people in the fall, they cut down their grasses, and they, that's like their fall cleanup they do. But instead, you should just leave them up, leave them there for some structure for birds to kind of get into and all of that. So some species that I picked out for my very dry and, well, not necessarily dry. It can get dry with the rain, so it can pool up in some areas. So I have in this corner over here, I have some gray dogwood, some cardinal flowers, because there's a lot of sun there, but the soils get really moist there. So that might do well there. But I also have some grasses in here to kind of provide that different structure as well. Some people, to make things look a little more presentable, they like diversity and maybe grasses tucked in one corner, but then something tucked in another corner in case that's something you're worried about. Especially in the front of our houses, people like things to look a little bit tidy. So instead of having a bunch of individual species, you may want to group maybe 3 or 5 species in an area and then group another 5 or so species. Because I don't know where everyone lives, but I live in Menor, and I know you have to keep your grass a certain height and things like that. And you can't put all the species you want in your yard. When we think about this, a lot of people, they just like their grass, and that doesn't really provide a lot of ecological benefit. So what I like to think about when I look at my yard is to kind of treat it as if you were cooking. I read this in a book where we should maybe compare gardening to cooking, where, when we're cooking a meal, you're not going to want to have it full of fats and, stuff that's not going to be really good and fuel your body. We should maybe be thinking about that with our yards as well. So we want to kind of treat the ecosystem kind of like our bodies, our system. So we want to provide the best health for that system. So instead of having, you're not cooking just for taste, you're cooking for health, we shouldn't be gardening just for looks, right? So we want to provide that diversity that's going to benefit different species that would increase the health of the ecosystem fully. So our front of the yards with all this pristine grass, that's kind of like your junk food, right? So we want to maybe introduce some different species to allow more nutrition to the system. So even what I've seen people do, and those garden magazines of cottages and just lovely flowers everywhere where they have more diversity rather than yard, it's also less to cut. I don't know about you guys, but I don't like cutting my grass. But it's annoying. I'd rather sit in the bed and weed than cut my grass. So that's something to think about as well. All right, so it looks like you guys have lots of good species on there. I was seeing that I was doing the same thing, and I started getting carried away. But
yeah, I had to start labeling what color they were, because I'm like, wait,
yes.
I have red next to blue. Is that going to look good?
Right.
Maybe I want this all just to be blue.
Yeah. So that's something to consider as well. Yeah.
Diversity.
I like the diversity too. Some people like, maybe just an all-white garden, which can look beautiful, and there's many species that may have a white flower. So you can still have that diversity of species being attracted to your yard, even with just one color. I have another PDF that I can send to you guys. There's a lot of pages, and I didn't want to print it out, but I'll send it into an email and give you guys that information. There's a lot of different sites too that have Excel sheets of species, when they're blooming, what color, the height, what kind of soil condition they need. So yeah, I can provide that information for you guys as well. Places that you can find species, like I mentioned earlier, is at Klein Nursery. That one's in Perry. And then also Planet Native, which is in Willoughby. You're going to find a lot of your species there, and you're going to find a lot of the variety of the natives that you're looking for. Don't be discouraged if you go to Home Depot or Lowe's and you don't see any natives. You're not really going to find them there. You might find some, but you really want to go for those larger nurseries, maybe out in Perry and whatnot. So with that, I'd like to wrap it up and just say thank you guys for coming out. Play around with those drawings too. Sit at home when it's raining outside, of course, because you want to be outside in nature when it's sunny. Go through some lists. I can also, if you send me, a request for more information through my email, I can send you guys some more links to articles and species lists that have all the information you're looking for. So yeah, just want to thank you guys for coming out.